And that's how I got away with pig riding manslaughter. Hey! Welcome back to the Team Yume podcast, the bi-weekly Team Yume podcast, I guess it's fair to refer to.
Yeah, that is fair.
Considering the way I usually edit these shows, it's mostly for the best that it is bi-weekly.
Yeah, it gives you more time to basically cut out all the bits where we just go, and mess up our lines and all that.
Yes, which is
It's
usually
the fun of audio editing.
a lot of work. Oh, don't I know that? I think I've edited more podcasts than regular videos ever since I started doing this in 2012. It's a good
you've done a lot
thing
of
that...
podcasts.
Yes, it's a good thing that... the first 5 episodes of this particular show are nowhere to be found online because they were atrocious. But then again, you have to start from somewhere, and that happened to be my poorly judged beginning.
Yeah, for sure they're usually the worst shows.
Again, if you never start, you will never improve. That's the law of the jungle, and I'm the jungle VIP. I just decided.
Exactly.
Right, so I'm going to date this podcast right away and talk about what happened last week. This past week was Valentine's week, which I guess it's a far more vague way to tell you that this past week Valentine's Day happened. But I'm pretending it's an entire week for mine and your convenience.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's do it for convenience. Yes, Valentine's was just last week. Or if you're watching this like a year from now, maybe it's like a month. It was a month behind you. Or 2 months, or whatever.
This podcast is now timeless. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
What have you been doing?
What I've been doing? I've been basically working for this new YouTube channel, Dr. Crafty, as he does basically drawn art videos. Like, you know those sort of speed art videos that basically you just see the person like draw the whole picture together?
Yes,
Like, Dr. Crafty does a little bit... Yeah, Dr. Crafty does something different where he basically puts little like talking points on top of those speed arts and little skits and such, basically make them more humorous and all that. So he's doing speed arts in a new humorous way. Me and Nero were able to join that for season 2 of that as his new editors.
Oh, so you are paid to do that?
Yep, a new paid position for Toon Grin.
Oh, that's
moving
great.
on up.
Better than nothing, I suppose, but that's good for you. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, other than that, just working on a whole bunch of other different stuff. Like next Cartoon Corner, we'll be doing a movie called Jester Till. Probably won't talk a lot about this because I still have to do like a lot more research into the German folklore of it. That's going to be a fun review.
I'm sure it
really
will.
Fun one.
If your last foray into European cartoons is any indications, you might find something even better than Swallow Punch! Oh, that's a classic.
It's Sparrow Punch. You gotta get it right, because only sparrows
Sparrow.
can just knock you the hell out.
Okay, now I have this image in my head of somebody actually swallowing a punch. And it's a Japanese horror all of a sudden.
Yeah. Hey, that sparrow could just punch you that hard. Just sticks it in your mouth.
Really, the Sparrow Puncher is not even the weirdest or most sinister animated feature to come out of Hungary. There is still that one film that we keep talking about it and we never actually get down to review, Son of the White Mare.
Yeah.
I have this half-finished or half-began script for a possible review to this film, sitting down in my computer for 3 years now. It is such a visually mangled and yet very well animated experience, and hence why I wanted to partner up with you to review that film. In fact, we started communicating with each other using that film as a starting point. That never came to fruition because, you know what, we started doing podcast and cartoon commentaries, and we need to go back and do that, by the way, at some point. I want to explore the entire archive of the Van Buren animation studios.
Of course.
That's a bit of a treasure cove for classic forgotten cartoons and the very earliest Mickey Mouse bootlegs.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yes.
Haven't seen anything from that, so...
You say it's interesting, and then you actually see Maurice the Mouse in action. You can see why Disney became a little protective about his IPs. Well, that and the fact that he was screwed out of Universal Studios for the character of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which was then given to Walter Lantz, which is mostly known for being the creator of Woody Woodpecker. Fun fact about Woody Woodpecker, since I brought it up all on my own, for no reason whatsoever. The original uglier design of the woodpecker was conceived by Ben Hardaway, which was formerly known as the one who first designed the very early prototype of the rabbit that would then become Bugs Bunny, when he was working under the Termite Terrace Warner Bros. Animation Studios in the 1930s. So that's a little bit of a scholar level information I just gave you, because I am an animation scholar, and I say that because I had held
you say
lectures.
That tone makes me sound like you're very humble about it. Like, well, I'm an animation scholar.
Okay, when I say animation scholar, I meant that I've held lectures of animation, so I guess that counts.
Yeah, sure, that counts.
Technically, it does, but not in a very high and mighty way. But, you know, you can always enlarge facts for your own benefit on the internet. Anyway,
that is true.
I
Unless
know
somebody watches this and just hears
my
that.
animation stuff. That's what I'm trying to convey. And you said Woody Woodpecker was a Harvey tune.
Man, that was based off just my memory. I was just working on my Baby Huey review, and I was just like, Baby Huey, Woody Woodpecker.
I even had this conversation with you when we watched that classic Terry Toon a few months ago. Baby Huey is a character you see in the Terry Toons.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of the Terry Toons, I need to rectify a small mistake that I made. Paul Terry did not create Baby Huey or the vast majority of the characters in his Terry Toons. They were previously conceived and created by other artists and animators that then came to work under him. Somebody in the comments section actually pointed that out. I wish I would remember who did that, but whomever you were, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah,
you know, I care about these things.
I know you do.
So anyway, let's actually jump into a topic of conversation that, for once, I think we can be on the same page. Which is to say, we're both prepared on said topic, because I actually asked you to take a look at this particular show so that we could talk about it and review it on this very podcast.
Yep, I certainly did. I watched probably 3/4 of the whole show. Got about like 10 episodes in between work.
Well, it's a good number of episodes. It should be enough to give you a idea of what this show is about and if you like it or not.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do you want to go or should I?
I don't know. So what's the show that we're talking about? Like, we gotta tell the audience.
We watched Unikitty.
I almost feel it's a show that's called Pa Pa Pa.
Okay, we watched Unikitty. In fact, I've been tweeting furiously about it in the past week or so because it's one of those, to me personally that is, it's one of those few animated shows or, you know, series in general that I start off disliking and then all of a sudden I enjoy.
Yeah, definitely when I first just watched Unikitty, or at least I should just say like when I saw like the advertisements everywhere about it, I was just like, meh.
Yes,
like just a series based off a separate character from the Lego movie.
Yes, which is what, 3-4 years too late?
Yeah.
To cash in on the popularity?
Well, technically not because of the Lego Ninjago movie, so that series of movies is still going around.
No, I was referring specifically to the Lego movie, which is that one film in which Unikitty was present for. So this is a spin-off to the Lego movie, which came out all the way back to 2013 or 14. In any case, it was a while ago, so this spin-off came about a bit too late, and I'm aware that this has been in the works for quite some time, and I dare say it shows in the best possible way, but I'll talk about that later. But regardless, I think it was clever on the show's part not to be directly linked to the Lego movie and instead trying to go for its own world and setting of wacky, absurd possibilities and its own set of characters to bounce off of Unikitty herself. That was a smart decision, especially in the current world we live in, where everything has to be in a shared universe. So that's different too.
Yeah, definitely. They basically just started the show by showing us in sort of a separate universe by showing the two Lego astronauts basically just tuning into the Unikitty show. So making it yep. So making it separate, completely separate. So it's just the Unikitty show. It's not the Lego movie. It's not to do with Lego. It's its own show. And like when I first started watching it, it was just basically all bubbly and cute and all that. You got Unikitty. Oh yeah, you got her brother who's just a dumb dog, the smart one, the big brute one, and just Rick.
Oh, I love Rick.
The Eeyore of the group that everyone just craps on.
You should not be doing this. It is highly unorthodox. I'm the straight man of your entire group. I'm so grateful he exists, honestly. I think he, very low-key, steals the show. Yeah, there are a few episodes that definitely showcase his perfect comedic timing when it comes to be a straight man. Pet Pet would come to mind. The episode Pet Pet, that is. But let's go in order. Preliminary information, Unikitty is unsurprisingly voiced by Tara Strong. Because she is freaking everywhere. It's Tara Strong, the voice acting goddess, the only one who can ever voice any female character that has to be either high-pitched or a princess or both. And if I sound snarky, it's because getting through to this show and starting to properly enjoy it, as I implied before, might take a few trials, so to speak. There is a audible barrier to your immediate enjoyment of this show, and that barrier is high-pitch Tara Strong.
Yeah. Really, especially in the first 2 episodes, that her high-pitched voice can be really grating to me.
Yes, well, to be fair, You have high-pitched Tara Strong playing a manic, psychotic, hyperactive character, and you pair her up with a equally hyperactive character, only dumber, which is her brother, Prince Puppycorn. Oh, these names would make a character from My Little Pony wince, but the difference is that the ridiculous names are part of the joke here, the absurd comedy that very much lampoons itself at any given chance, which I can appreciate. But yes, the first 2 or 3 episodes are a bit of a chore to get through, but then there is episode 4. And from then on, at least as far as I'm concerned, the show is brilliant. But I'd like to hear your opinion about it.
Basically, when I was watching it, like the first episode was sort of like the spooky episode where the characters all go into the Halloween version of Jumanji.
It's a weird episode to start with. I suspect these episodes were aired out of order.
Yeah, because the second episode is really the first episode where they introduce all the characters and all the quirks and all that. And I'll just say, as it comes to pilot episodes, it's actually a pretty decent pilot. Like, of course, Unikitty is annoying and all that, but it introduces the characters well enough. It introduces the themes, basically the running gags and all that, and it just basically pushes it out there. It's something that could really encapsulate everything the Unikitty show is, and where it can grow from there. It's still very annoying with Unikitty and Puppycorn going around with high-pitched voices, but it's a starting off point at least, and I feel it's a pretty strong one, albeit a little bit annoying.
I eventually grew to like these characters. It was clever of the show to rein down a little bit the high-pitched annoying factor of Unikitty and her brother, to give other characters a chance to shine and properly bounce off of their energy, so to speak, or their toxicity, if you will. And the show really shines for me when it is aware of that, and it uses it as a crutch and a conflict to overcome. Basically, Unikitty is so psychotic at times that she becomes detrimental to her entire country. I mean, in the episode Hide and Seek, which is one of the best, she turns her country into a fascist military dictatorship because she cannot find Rick.
Yeah, that's sort of the highlight of the show. It's just Unikitty's psychotic personality. Because you usually, in these sort of cutesy shows, you get just the happy girl. Like, nothing can ever make me feel sad or anything. And it just gets boring after a while. With Unikitty, when she goes completely psychotic, there's at least sort of a shift in dynamic and such. And being self-aware that her anger can be explosively bad and such.
Literally explosively bad, in fact. I really like her rage-filled outbursts. They were cute, so to speak, in the Lego movie, but in this cartoon, they are so well animated.
Yeah.
The animation is great in this show, in fact. You don't notice immediately because the show doesn't go out of its way to throttle you, metaphorically speaking, with its style. Its style is very simple, flat-colored, and all of that. It's meant to emulate the blocky, simple nature of the Lego blocks. Now, when you have a show like OKKO, that's a series that immediately jumps at you with how colorful and different looking it is. It has a unique style and a great animation, and it wants you to notice immediately. When it comes to Unikitty, it's a more gradual approach.
Yeah, when it comes to like its movement, it's like where I really realized that it's much more creative than I first let on to be. Because when you first see it, it's just like, oh, this just looks like every other cute little Flash animated cartoon that you can see around.
It's not
Simple
Flash
colors.
animated, though.
Yeah, I know, but by the untrained eye, it'll just be like, oh, that basically just looks like Flash animated cartoons. In the Lego movie, like with Unikitty's basically character being just basically an arch, she would have to move just like that. Now you get to see she basically curves around, moves like a snake, and there's a lot more actual creativity to the movement. It basically makes sort of everything feeling more free-flowing.
Everything is awesome. As far as the animation is. Oh wow, that's an old reference. But yes, I really like how Unikitty's body twists and turns and gets distorted in lieu of her emotional outbursts, or even lack thereof. The animation is top-notch in that regard, and I had the opportunity to appreciate even the more subtle moments of the animation. For example, one of my favorite scenes in the show comes again from the episode Hide and Seek. There is this one scene in which she is whispering to Richard, and her mouth goes to the side, like so, and her side-lipped whispering, so to speak, is inexplicably adorable. To me, at least. And that's one of the more subtle moments of the animation. It's very well timed with the comedy and the comedic momentum of a given cartoon, of a given episode. These episodes, in that regard, are very much fast-paced. They have fast-paced, absurd comedy going on. But unlike a show like Mighty Magiswords, the jokes actually have the time to properly land, because, again, the timing is impeccable, and the animation complements that. The animation and the editing, it's the chef's kiss of absurd comedy, if you ask me.
Yeah, and it also does something that most other sort of shows like Magic Swords never does. It basically just has sort of a joke that basically just drops like that. Like at the end of almost every episode, you basically would end on a joke, basically just bop, and just end it like that. You never see most animated shows ever do that. They basically just keep building up and up and up until it just becomes just exhausting to sit through.
Here, the Amazing World of Gumball tends to end on a dropped joke like that, as you described. Not that they are very similar. I mean, they both employ absurd humor and slowly escalating absurd humor in that sense. But the characters in Gumball are a bit more well-rounded and complex and multi-layered, and the jokes really come not only from the situations, but also from how their personalities interlap with one another, in a way that's a bit more mature, so to speak. But that's not to say that Unikitty is less funny. It is very funny, but in a different way, in a subtly different way. Instead of a slow escalation, it tends to explode from minute 1, and then it keeps going up until the end. And since every episode is 10 minutes long, I think it's the perfect length to convey this sort of fast-paced comedy. I am trying my hardest not to give you actual examples of what the comedy entails, because that would be spoiling the fun. This is a show that needs to be seen to be believed. And again, the first 3 episodes are the entry bar, so to speak, before getting to the good stuff. Because, like I said, after episode 4, it's a tour de force. It's a comedic cavalcade. Honestly, I cannot think of anything funnier than episode 4. The Action Forest! And if you're familiar with Unikitty and the show and what it's about, then you will know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to say this. There is a character that's been voiced by the same guy who did Lord Hater's voice in Wonder Over Yonder, which was also originally the voice actor for Blue from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. So just because of that, that should be incentive for you to watch it. But in case it isn't, it is possibly the ultimate glorious parody of action movie cliches.
Yep.
And every character in that episode is played to their utmost strength. Really, these characters are very simple, but the world and humor at play around them complements their simple personality, allowing for limitless potential for creative comedy and animation. And to me, Unikitty is just that. A surprisingly creative, fun, surreal, absurdist, nightmare comedic dystopia that just so happens to be made to promote a toy line or, you know, Lego.
I wasn't really laughing out loud or anything like that. It was just like, oh, this
I
is
was.
a great show. Yeah, there were some definitely funny jokes in there. It was just sort of, lately I haven't really found anything to basically tickle my funny bone.
You should watch the rest of it. Maybe you'll find that one episode that tickles your fancy, so to speak.
Yeah, I'll see about that. But even if it doesn't tickle my fancy at the moment, I still say like it's a really good show. Like it's one of those shows that I basically would use it as an example. We can make cartoons for kids. Like this is something that, by any sort of like business guy sort of perspective, would just be like, it's colorful, it's got loud voices in it, it's perfect for kids. But no, we don't. We want some actual depth to it. We want actual characters with dynamics and such. So we got Unikitty. These are simple characters, but they have the dynamics together to basically make the comedy work. So this is something that I would like to have my kids watch. Like I wouldn't want to watch Magiswords because that rep is dumb.
Mighty Magiswords.
Yeah,
Unikitty is what Mighty Magiswords should have been.
Yeah.
And I said this many times before, I wanted to like Mighty Magiswords because I really enjoyed those 3 minutes long cartoons that first appeared on the Cartoon Network app. But that's the problem. Those were 3 minutes long episodes, and as such, they were paced like 3 minutes long episodes. Now we have 10 minutes long episodes that are paced as if they were 3 minutes long, so...
Yeah.
It's really obnoxious. Irritating. I gave so many chances to that show, but I cannot even crack a smile because none of the jokes has the time to land. Unikitty is able to have jokes and deliver them at a ridiculous speed, and yet everything still lands and hits base, so to speak.
Yeah. And
so why can't Mighty Magiswords?
And it doesn't go the other extreme, basically just cramming jokes down your throat until it basically is too jam-packed to them. It's basically paced well enough to basically know when to make jokes, when to play straight, and when to just have exposition and narrative, basically making it all balanced.
Okay, so I have one mostly negative thing to say about Unikitty. And that's not really the fault of the show so much as it is the fault of casting. Dr. Fox. Okay, so the voice actress of Dr. Fox, her name is Mikuchi, I believe, her last name. She's also a singer and a songwriter. It figures. She can only do one type of voice. The geeky girl kind of voice. She's been cast as Velma, and she's good at her. But then she's been cast as Webby from the new Ducktales, and she still sounds like Velma. She's been cast as the sister of Milo in Milo Murphy's Law, and she still sounds like Velma. Dr. Fox is Velma. This is the kind of limited actor that gets cast in that one very specific role every time and becomes too recognizable, and it takes you out of the experience. I mean, as much as I complain about Tara Strong being too exposed and too recognizable, she has range. She's a professional. She can be Bubbles, she can be Timmy Turner, and she can be a baby making baby sounds and still be good at it.
Right.
Mikuchi can only do one role. She is the equivalent of Kristen Schaal. She's like Kristen Schaal for being the voice of Mabel and the voice of that girl from Bob's Burgers. One is the default geeky girl, the other is the default dorky girl. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
It ruins Ducktales for me. And the reason why she's ruining Ducktales for me is because Webby is the most overexposed character in the show. Even more than the triplets. She's everywhere and constantly in the center center of the stage.
Yep, it's just because Disney just screwed up with the scheduling of it. Basically putting all the Webby episodes first, so they're just side by side completely.
Yeah, honestly, the scheduling and how the episodes were aired, the order and all that, that also took away massively from my enjoyment of the show.
Yeah,
and really also the fact that it has so many characters that it doesn't know what to do with them. And thus, Donald Duck and Launchpad McQuack become completely interchangeable in their role in a given episode. For example, there might be an episode in which Donald is joining into the adventure, and then there might be another episode in which Launchpad is joining into the adventure, and there is no reason for one to be there, and vice versa.
Yeah. And that makes me disappointed, because when the whole DuckTales was being advertised to begin with, I was so excited for Donald to join the adventure, because Donald's one of my favorite characters of all time.
He's barely there!
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he's pushed it aside a line completely. It's just like, why am I watching this then? I already got the original series to watch.
It's not even that funny. Why am I not laughing at the jokes? I don't think I like the new DuckTales.
I don't hate the new DuckTales yet. It hasn't done anything to basically make me hate it, but I definitely feel like I'm going to rewatch it when all the first season just comes out. Basically in the correct order.
On a different order, yes. Speaking of infuriating scheduling, so to speak. So, in the first 3 episodes, we make a big deal about Dewey finding out about his mother. And then the show completely forgets about that plotline.
But the writer sure didn't, because the next episode was supposed to be like a Dewey episode where he was going to research his mom. But they changed that.
This is Star versus the forces of evil all over again.
Yep,
the most abysmally paced show imaginable, by the way. It has so much filler in the middle of much more interesting story arcs that it should be exploring, but no, we had to shoehorn as much as teen drama and romance as possible, because we are Disney Channel or Disney XD, and we do that.
Yep, Disney just loves to do that. Just messing up what is already good with just commercialized crap.
I'm so thankful that Nickelodeon is so good right now. So at least there is a balance.
Yeah, definitely. Like what I've just been really enjoying from Nickelodeon is just all their pilot episodes they've been putting on Facebook and such.
Yes! On their YouTube channel and Facebook. I've seen a few episodes just today, a few pilot episodes in the past week. And while most of them will never become shows because they just make no bloody sense, at least the fact that Nickelodeon is showcasing these different creators and artists and their own unique style is doing wonders for the animation industry in the long term.
Yeah, definitely.
Basically, I think everybody is slowly catching up to Frederator Channel. Essentially, to Frederator Studios, I should say. Which is about time.
Yep, exactly. Like the 2 shows that I'm sort of excited from Cartoon Network about that they did pilot episodes for is Craig of the Creek, which I thought that was a really good pilot.
Really good.
And also
it's
Infinity
somewhere
Train.
In between Recess and Kids Next Door.
Yeah, that was immediately what my sort of comparison would be more close to the Recess. And it's more about like in
Yes.
the creek, it's basically their own sort of economy and such with all the kids and doing their own separate thing. Like he
It's
had in
really
the
nice.
pilot episode where there's basically sort of a paintball war and all that. So it's basically it's just their own little society in the creek.
I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. Infinity Train is getting its own show, you say?
I'm not sure if it's getting its own show yet, but I know that that's one of the like most viewed pilots that they aired out there. So
That's good.
it would be a shocker to me like if they did nothing with it.
Speaking of good pilots, the most watched pilot on the Nickelodeon Facebook page would be Planet Panic, if I am not mistaken.
I'm
Have
trying
you
to
seen
remember
that?
that one.
It's a very
feel-
colorful, very action-packed, sort of futuristic buddy cop comedy.
Oh yeah, with the sort of the gruff guy and the little kid in the cop car.
Yes, the gruff robot guy with a pompadour, which I like instantly.
Yeah, I can definitely see that becoming a TV series as well.
Yes.
Because,
Oh.
the setting looks really interesting. The two characters bounce off each other really well.
You know what
And
I
it's a
really
good
like about all of these pilot episodes, these short animations being exposed, is that in most cases they will not become shows because logically speaking that's not how the business works. But the very simple fact that they are getting this important and widespread exposure means that we will get examples or cases, individual cases like Forever 12, which was not picked up by Cartoon Network, but instead it's gotten picked up by Netflix. And next year we're going to have a first season of that produced by Netflix.
Yep.
It probably would have not been picked up if it didn't have that kind of exposure. I think it's relatively safe to assume.
And we'll be seeing more shows like that with like Amazon coming out with its own sort of service and such, as it's producing its own movies and such.
Once again, we live in a great era for cartoons and Western animation.
Yeah, I'm happy too. And I've always been the sort of guy that basically just goes out to Walmart just to basically see all the lesser known animated movies. Just to see what catches my eye. Because Walmart's usually a gold mine for finding those sort of movies.
Indeed. So back to Unikitty, this was a huge deviation, but at the same time it's still relevant. Watch Unikitty. Yes,
Yeah.
that concludes my review of Unikitty. It's good, it's funny. It doesn't matter if it's promoting a toy line or Lego. The Lego movie was like that, and it was good. The Lego Batman movie was good as well. Apparently even Lego Ninjago was good. I did not bother with that one. No, it wasn't.
No, it was not good.
Well,
If you watch
okay.
that-
2 out of 3 of those Lego films are good. I think it's fair.
Yeah. Like, for Unikitty as a whole, like my friend Nero always says this when it comes to the Lego movies. Like, when the first Lego movie came out, it basically proved sort of to the industry that you can have sort of a product movie, but still have a strong story, strong characters to it, and it can be profitable. So we should basically hold up most other entertainment to that level. Unikitty is a product show, and it was still strong writing, strong comedy, and it's strong animation. So we should just keep it to that level. And so that's why I say it's a great show, and you should watch it as well. That's my review.
Indeed. And then there was the Emoji Movie, which basically took us back a decade or so.
Yeah. That
Some
was just
people
such a
never learn.
non-movie for me. I don't even care for it. Like, the only positive that it really shows is that it had such a smaller budget, but it still looked pretty alright.
Yeah, speaking of small budgeted CGI films, but made great by a fantastic stylization of said CGI animation, Captain Underpants is so good.
Yeah, it is. It
It
really
is so
is
good. It had everything riding against it, including the fact that it was produced by DreamWorks, but it was good. Do you know how many films, animated family films, based off popular children's book end up becoming good? None! This is the one exception. I'm glad.
Well, I wouldn't say none. They're, like, definitely with DreamWorks, they are the most experimental of all the animation studios, and most of their movies are based off books.
Well, that's
like
funny, because honestly, for the longest time, they were the most samey and safe and least interesting.
Yep, exactly.
Every film is Shrek for a while.
Yeah, it's basically when they make a series of a movie like Shrek or Madagascar, they'll milk that to all it's worth, and Kung Fu Panda as well.
I like Kung Fu Panda 2. I didn't care for the first one. In fact, I kind of hated it. And the third one was basically rehashing the same lesson that the second one had.
Yeah, that's basically mine and Nero's thoughts on it. We're actually going to review all three of the movies someday. But yeah, I just more hate the third movie for that. And it just does it in such a stupid way that it becomes insulting to like how much we like the second movie.
The second film is great, except for the last 30 seconds, because they tease us about the third one.
Yep. And it's just like, yep,
just like
that,
it undoes everything that was learned in this one.
Yep, it really does. And then the third one just comes in and basically just rub your face into that.
Oh my gosh.
Like, the whole father aspect of Poe is just the most hateable thing in that movie for me. It just makes no sense. Ugh. Like, if I were just going to tell it to the audience, like, the most simplistic way possible, basically, big bad guy's going to get Poe. So Poe's dad is going to take him away to basically keep him safe, but under the guise that he's training him. And where's he going to take him to basically keep him safe? To the place where the bad guy is going. That's moronic. That's utterly moronic. It defeats the purpose of why he's lying to begin with. Ugh. And that's why I hate that movie. It just doesn't... Its writing just does not add up to the point where I just want to pull my hair out.
I have a irrational hatred for the first one, actually. And the reason is subtle, but at the same time really, really damaging. The very premise of it, the idea that some random nobody becomes the chosen one because destiny. Yep. Never mind all those other 5 who train their entire life. Never mind all of that, it doesn't matter, because you have to be chosen to be the guy. You have to be Roman Reigns in WWE. And
yeah, that's sort of the reason why Nero hates that first movie.
Honestly, I think the Turtle Man, the old Turtle Master, is just a big troll that likes to make fun of people and uses the word destiny. This was all preordained just to mess with them. I hate that turtle. He is the reason! That turtle is the reason why the bad guy was the bad guy in that film.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, he just says, like, that's the evil in you. And then he became evil.
Okay, sure. You know what? Star Wars The Last Jedi did that exact plotline the right way. Yes, I said it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed The Last Jedi, by the way. It is the different Star Wars I've been craving for years now. It's not as bad as the prequels, and it's not a remake of A New Hope. So I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the direction that the franchise is taking. Even though the meta-narrative is that Disney saying, this is how Star Wars is now. It's different. You see how different it is?
Yeah, Disney is just getting its hands all dirty on all these properties.
You know, since the Disney is going to rule the world eventually and make us all into furry slaves, essentially, at least they are progressive, I want to say, and forward-thinking enough to make good products to brainwash you with.
Yeah.
So at least, you know, there's that. It's still absolutely horrifying and terrifying, the notion that they have bought Fox and they're going to buy their way into planetarian-wide pop culture domination. Not that they aren't already in the top position of that.
Yeah, I just wouldn't say like DreamWorks is perfect at that. It's still very just sort of committee designed in a lot of aspects when it comes to all progressive and such. Like when it came to the Zootopia movie, how it shifted its story from what it originally was, where Nick was the main character, to the Bunny Cop movie, where the minorities are oppressed and all that. I wonder why they changed it like that. They wouldn't want it to basically make the prey seem kind of like horrible characters, putting predators in collars and shocking them. That would be a little bit more difficult to show to kids, right? But no, well, we have the predators and prey sort of situation in the actual movie that came out.
You know what? Given how much we are seeing about the police force in the US being the most rotten, unredeemable it can possibly be, I long to see the version of Zootopia that's actually from Nick's point of view. That would be interesting.
That was what the first movie was basically going to be.
I know. I liked Zootopia, but I recognize that seeing mainstream Hollywood films giving a pass to the entire police force, for whatever reason, will not cut it anymore. But then again, Zootopia came out 2 years ago, and now the situation is much, much worse than it was back then. Yeah, not that it wasn't already, but, you know, so we are more aware now.
Right.
And that's
it basically becomes a movie that's sort of preaching to the choir. It's not really asking any sort of difficult questions to basically make really think or anything. It's just basically,
well, I wouldn't say
the theme.
I wouldn't say it doesn't make you think, because again, I like that the film is basically taking the issue of prejudice and racial persecution and it's deconstructing it, essentially. It frames it as a problem that stems from society itself, and it goes on to influence society in the future. I said all of this already in my original foot bubble of the film. Still a good film.
Yeah, still a good film. It's just, anyway. I mean, not as deep as people would say it is. That's just sort of my aspect of it.
I don't think a film needs to be especially deep to convey a message that needs to be understood by as many people as possible. Like prejudice, for example.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. It's when a movie focuses so much on that sort of theme or message and such, that it sort of spins itself. It's just sort of saying like this big, powerful message, but it becomes off where the stronger message would be just stating it as just simply as possible and just letting people think of it, rather than it's just sort of pushing it up so high that it's just like, this is our grand message for everyone to really understand, to change your thinking.
I can understand that point of view. I mean, you're going out of your way to use an animal allegory for it, challenge your audience a little bit more. For example, Orwell's Animal Farm was an allegory for Soviet Russia. Right. To say that in very broad strokes. It doesn't tell you that it is an allegory for that, because it wouldn't be an allegory otherwise. It's in the subtext.
Right, exactly. And it uses the fact that they're animals to help that subtext. While in Zootopia, they sort of miss their chances on that, and they basically pull some stupid writing, just like, there's one scene where Judy's with Nick, and Nick's getting all angry at Judy, and she goes for her fox mace, and Nick's all like, "Oh, you're just scared of me now?" Well, yeah, of course she's scared of you. You're a big predator that could snap her head off. You may be friends, but there's a predator-prey sort of situation there still.
Okay, now you're making the mistake of adding the inherent realism of animal dynamics, if that's even a sentence that makes sense.
At the same time, that's where the prejudice is based on, though.
Yes, but the film makes a point that that was a long time ago, when we were all primitive cavemen, or, you know, the equivalent of that in the animal world. The film, likewise, goes out of its way to tell you that the reason why the predators were going nuts was because of government-distributed drugs, which in itself is a metaphor for that toxic mentality that the government distributes to the masses through the control of media. And that, honestly, is the most clever point of the film, if you ask me. To this very day, I say that. I would argue that for many kids, this will be their very first woke film, so to speak. If you allow me to use that awful word.
You said that.
But it conveys the point. For many kids, this will be their very first experience with a film telling them that the world is not this very nice place, that there is racism and prejudice, and it's important for them to be on the right side of history, so to speak. You know, not being the racist bastard, but to be, you know, good to each other. And again, for what it is, for a family film by Disney, it does its job very well. To this very day, it's still very much relevant in what it has to say about society. And honestly, a few adults could use this message being drilled into their heads, considering how dumb everyone is. Generally speaking.
That is true. I can see it go towards the kids who are basically wanting to get situated into that sort of mentality and such. I just don't feel that the theming is there enough to basically convince of anything. The movie is more showing its information just sort of that boisterous style that basically pushes those people away. It doesn't really convince. It basically overlaps, in a sense, people's thinking. And that's just sort of like the problem with our sort of political discussions and such. They basically go like one extreme or the other extreme. There's nothing in the middle. And there's no sort of discourse and to understand where that gray area is. Zootopia is still a great movie, and I still feel that it does its theming very well. It just deals in more extreme sort of circumstances rather than going into the gray areas, which children should also understand as time goes on. But that can say to like their actual own life experiences.
Well, I think there are plenty of gray areas. They are the least boisterous moments in the film. Like I said, prejudice has many forms. It can be that one guy in the store that refuses to serve the fox, or it can be the lion politician who's trying to look good, but in reality doesn't really care for the small animals. There is classism, elitarianism, day-by-day casual racism. It stems from every aspect and every inch of society, from the biggest and most important political figures to the smallest everyday nut job, so to speak. It's profoundly ingrained in the DNA of modern society, and it will take a huge effort to purge that in the next few generations. So Zootopia acknowledges that, literally tells you in fact. So even though it has a technical happy ending, it still doesn't quite resolve the biggest issue, which is we're all racist. Damn it! There is no fixing that with defeating one corrupt politician.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you can't beat racism by getting rid of one politician. I can't argue that.
Uh, Speaking of allegories and how to misuse said allegories, I would like to pick your brain for a bit regarding a certain topic. This will be a whole elaborate segue for me to talk about a webcomic, by the way, so just so you know.
Okay.
As a bisexual person, as you told me you were, I would like to hear your opinion about this still relatively recent, but by now also relatively cold topic of interpreting the X-Men as an allegory for coming out as gay and the homophobia and fear that's surrounding you because of that.
Well, for me, I'm completely indifferent to it because I never really considered that as anything. I consider always the X-Men just an allegory for minorities and such, pushed to the sidelines and all that.
The Bryan Singer films are definitely pushing a more obvious agenda towards the homophobia aspect of it, which, you know, it still has to do with prejudice, it still has to do with persecuting a group of people because they are different, but it's technically more appropriate, I use all the quotation marks by the way, to use it as a representation of coming out as gay, because most mutants you cannot tell immediately that they are mutants. But when you discover them, you are horrified because they're different. Allow me to laugh at that, by the way.
Yeah, that's completely fun to laugh at that, because I basically had sort of this discussion with Nero before, in comparison also to Elsa from Frozen, like how people claimed that her ice powers was an allegory for her being gay as well and coming out of the closet.
I have feelings about this.
The fact that mutants have powers is not an allegory for being gay, bisexual, or anything like that. When I'm bisexual and I come out, it's just like, that's just a part of my personality. It's not like, hi guys, claws come out of my hands. That's just me, you've got to accept me. It just, I really don't know the best way to put it without discussing with Nero again, because we discussed.
I can help you with that, because I have very, very strong opinions about the X-Men being interpreted as that, or indeed in general about superpowers being interpreted in any of that.
Yeah.
The subtext in the X-Men films is directly in contrast with the text.
Yeah, you just become a danger in a sense. You become something completely different from people, which is stupid.
And yes, like I said, the subtext is in direct contrast with the text, because then we would have to buy that metaphorical homosexual mutant is powerful enough to bend and manipulate all of the metal in the world, and is going to use this power to destroy all of the non-mutant people out of a vendetta. Whereas the reality of the situation is that homosexual people have been persecuted and they are helpless to defend themselves. So that's why the allegory doesn't work. I'm going to tell you this. Superpowers work well if you had to make a story about coming of age, about growing up and accepting the responsibility of becoming an adult. Like Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility, blah, 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 blah. It's a metaphor for growing up and basically learning what it means to be responsible for your own actions.
Right.
And learning to control your newfound powers, which can be akin to discovering your body as you grow up because of puberty and all that. And that works to a point. It doesn't work when you are, in fact, a superhero that can destroy buildings, for example. The reason why superpowers are not a good metaphor for coming out of the closet or even racial persecution is the implication that those persecuted actually could be a serious danger to society because they have superpowers that normal people actually would have a rational reason to be wary of.
You're crazy, because I can love men and women. I'm going to destroy the foundation of society like that.
And you have to accept me for who I am, by the way.
Or I'll destroy you.
This is also a problem inherent with many of Hollywood films and mainstream cinema in general. This idea that homosexuality is either a plot point
Or a special trait.
Or a subtext.
Yeah. I would say more a special trait, because it becomes that sort of thing where they can basically highlight it in all their promotion and such. Because we got a gay character. That means that we are, you know, all inclusive and such.
Segue perfectly to this webcomic I wanted to talk about. It's Inhibit by Eve G. Now, the great thing about this comic right away is that half the cast is queer or otherwise non-binary, and that's fine. It's part of who they are. It doesn't really link to anything having to do with the story or the narrative. It's just something that's there because people are people.
Yeah, they just happen to be those things. And there's
good.
A story around that. It's not connected to them being binary or
it's
anything
absolutely
like that.
not connected to their lifestyle choices. It has everything to do, however, with growing up. And that's where superpowers are actually at their strongest when it comes to whatever allegory you're going for, so to speak. Okay, so we have super teens with superpowers. And society has established a way to inhibit those powers, both for their good and the good of other people. It's a system based on rational choices, up until they can control their powers better, and they are trained to do so. And those very specific abilities are bound to go away after a certain age, usually around age 24. Superpowers in this context become a metaphor for the fear of becoming adult, the fear of growing up and facing a world that's not ready for you and that you are not ready for. It's the anxiety of adulthood, which is made especially strong by the fact that the main characters are all young adults.
Right.
And that's really good. That's a different, much more thought-provoking and challenging way to implement superpowers in what is essentially the umpteenth rendition of X-Men. That's actually really well thought out, and the comic is pretty good as well, from a writing standpoint. It manages to establish a whole world full of its own rules, clearly, without resorting to forced or plot-derailing expositions. Most of the information required for you to know is shown to you. And occasionally you have characters casually having discussions about things they know, but not in a way that goes, well, as you know, this and this and this works like this and this and this. They don't do that because they already know that. So, it's a comic that's treating its audience with a modicum of intelligence, and it's a relatively well-written one and well presented as well. Inhibit by Eve G. I would recommend to check it out. I would like to hear your opinion of it. Maybe we can discuss about it more in depth in some other podcast.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can try to read it sometime, and I'll give you my thoughts on it.
I have plenty more webcomics to recommend, but I think I'll leave them for future iterations of this show, so that I have something to discuss every time. I find in the last year especially that webcomics are probably the most easily digestible and least time-consuming form of literature to keep myself and my brain engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yes.
I've really been almost getting out of webcomics recently. Just haven't had the time with school and such. But the few that I do read, it's basically always been something that I basically go back to basically relax during like a stressful day and such. So definitely reading any more webcomics would always be good.
Before we go, I watched The Shape of Water last week. It finally came out in Italian cinemas. They've waited for Valentine's week, apparently. Which, I guess it makes sense.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It's good. It's as every bit as good as they tell you it is. Great cinematography, great acting and directing, scenic composition, beautiful to look at, extremely romantic given the subject matter in a emotionally sincere way, and basically it's the kind of film that should not be good at all, but it is. So,
nice.
Yes, it's good.
Good.
Watch it.
I'll get around to it. I watch more animated movies because that's my life.
Yes, well, I'll definitely have to talk with you about Black Panther once it comes around this parts and I watch it.
Yep.
I know you have already.
Yep, gonna be coming out a review of it this Friday. That's coming up. Not sure when this video will come up, but it's gonna be out. Yeah.
I cannot wait to that. I cannot wait to see that. The film, I mean. Also your review, but mostly the film.
Yeah, I think some people may get pissed off at our review, honestly.
Oh, you did not give it a completely full 5-star glowing review.
No, we did not.
Okay, well,
so we're probably just gonna be, just thrown off cliffs or something for doing that.
I know there is a villain named the Killmonger, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, Killmonger. We're from the comics.
Yes. Huh. And apparently he is the most complex villain Marvel has put out so far, even though he's named Killmonger. That's going to be interesting.
Yep.
Okay. I think we should wrap up this podcast. It has been fun, and I was not expecting to have a Zootopia discussion. There is always something interesting to extrapolate from, modern woke films. As it were.
Yeah, you're getting so woke. And you'll get woke with Black Panther.
Woken! Yes! I will delete you! Delete!
Oh no!
Delete! 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 Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Delete! Hey guys, time for some last-minute plugging because I forgot to record it.
Yay!
You go first.
Oh yeah, we're working on a few different videos. As long as working on the Dr. Crafty stuff, which we'll be sharing on social media. We'll be doing a Cartoon Corner review of Jester Till, a near reviews of My Little Pony the movie. And what else? And watching stuff, so Black Panther and Early Man. So that'll be coming out in the next few weeks, so stay tuned for that.
Where can people find you?
At toongrin.com and our new YouTube channel, which doesn't have a URL yet. It just has a bunch of massive numbers, so you'll go there.
The link for that will be at the end of this video. Maybe it's up right now. Who knows?
Oh!
It depends how long this little blurb goes. Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at AdrianoBordoni1. My handle is Madhog WhyBoy, so you cannot miss it. You can find me on Tumblr, teamume.tumblr.com, and all the relevant links to my social media are always in the description below. You are already watching me on my YouTube, so you already know where you are. And yes, that's about it. This was our also necessary plugging. Oh, yes, of course. How could I forget? You can support me on Patreon, where you can have previews, or I should say, you can get this show and other videos I make a few days early compared to when they are released on YouTube. You can pledge just about anything you want. $1, even $1 helps. It's not obligatory, you will see this program regardless, but if you do, I'll be very grateful to you. So, again, my Patreon's link is in the description and will be also displayed in the end screen of this video, yeah? And all of that. And yes, so, in conclusion, I have been Madhog WhyBoy.
And I've been WhyBoy, and you just got woke.
I am Woken!